We do this show on the side of the highway. Welcome. Here we are on Interstate 95. How are you? What's up? Do you need a laugh? Are you experiencing some anxiety in your life? Are you experiencing a lot of anxiety constantly? Well, how about a chilled out, funny show from a highway gas station? We got you here. The great Dave Hill is here right now. Thank you so much to all of our wonderful listeners who share these episodes at liveon95.com and connect with us online. Our friend Dave Hill has a brand new book called The Awesome Game. Go now and buy The Awesome Game by Dave Hill and all of his other books at davehillonline.com. Go now. Dave is also on tour with Tenacious D. That is correct. Dave Hill and Tenacious D. I originally met Dave years ago doing comedy together, and Dave Hill is obviously also a legendary musician. Fun fact, Dave Hill's awesome band, Valley Lodge, wrote that rockin' track called Go, which is the theme song to HBO's Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. Check out everything Dave Hill at davehillonline.com. Dave isn't on the highway with us today. He's calling in from Calgary WordFest. It's our first ever guest calling in from Calgary WordFest. It's huge. Big shout out to Calgary and all of Canada. Honored Dave Hill would be here at all. Thank you, Dave. This episode starts right now. All right, we are recording now, Dave, because I don't want to miss us talking here about Nantucket, Massachusetts. And let's say you and I try to get a show at the Chicken Box in Nantucket. Dave Hill is live on 95. Dave, thank you for being here, man. Have you ever been to Nantucket?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. I just went to Nantucket. My girlfriend, our dog, and I, we drove out there to Nantucket. You know, we parked the car, took the ferry. I'd been to Nantucket once before, but I have not many memories of it, in terms of transport anyway. And we went out there, and I had a delightful time. It was that weekend that was really rainy on the East Coast, but that didn't stop us. There's a restaurant where you can bring your dog, and we went there twice because my girlfriend doesn't like to leave the dog alone. And my dog, I don't think, really likes to go to restaurants. So no one really wins. But we did have a good time. I really liked it. I thought it would be cool to live, and I'm hoping this is podcasting gold, but I thought it would be cool to live on Nantucket year round. But as we were leaving, this guy messaged me on Instagram because he'd seen me post stuff, and he was like,
no.
hey, you're here. Like, are you still here? And I said, no, I'm leaving. And he's like, next time I'll show you around, parentheses, murder you. No, he seemed like a nice guy. And but I said, do you live here? And he said, yeah. I'm like, what's it like in the off season? He painted he said it's pretty intense. Sounded like it could get pretty bleak if you didn't really work against that.
Yeah, for like 4 months probably, right? And that's about it.
Yeah, he said it's, you really have to like have your crew of friends locked in and like figure out what you're gonna do, or you may be driven to insanity.
Yeah, like you have to try to not drink yourself to death.
Yeah, but I don't know. I kind of like the image of being alone on an island, drinking myself near death. Not quite.
Dave, let's move to Nantucket. I'll leave you alone. Trust me, I'm not saying like I have a lot
Just
of
check.
respect for the alone thing, but like let's move there around the same time and maybe we see each other once a year.
Once I don't know. I could see getting on, a weekly, bi-weekly thing.
Good. Okay. We could do
Um,
a show at the right in town.
the people need it. Get out there and bring them the razzmatazz.
That's the only thing missing from Nantucket is the razzmatazz, dude.
Oh yeah, yeah. But it has everything else. Um, yeah, no complaints here. My girlfriend didn't like that all the houses have the same shingles, but I had no beef with that. I've been enough places where everything's painted different colors. I just give oh, fine. And my sister has a house there, so I'm like, well, that's all it takes. Someone else has a house that we can go to,
Yes, I
you know?
remember that you had these Massachusetts connections. So I honestly really think we should move to Nantucket together.
I gotta say, I've dreamt my whole life of having New England connections because it just is so idyllic, or at least portrayed as idyllic, uh, you know, in movies and literature. And and then my sister married a guy from Boston, so now I'm sort of adjacent to it. Get out there.
Dude, when you come, you can stay here. You could stay with me.
In your home?
Yeah, for real.
Okay, I'm in.
There's an extra bedroom, bathroom situation. Wait, Dave, not to make you self-conscious because we got all this, but maybe the other mic was better. It's a little bit like I'm sorry. I This is like a cardinal sin of doing this. I shouldn't have even said anything, but I'll edit this part out. I'm
No,
sorry.
let me microphone. Oh,
Is this better?
Oh no, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, it sounds better.
Yeah, it sounds excellent now.
Okay, I fixed the right thing now. I'm sorry
It's
I had
it's
it wrong.
comical because now you sound like a million times better.
Okay, well, we can
Are you on tour?
I'm sort of. I'm glad you asked, Greg. Um
I
I
have
have a
so
new
many
book.
questions.
I have a I have a new book coming out. The
Yes,
Awesome
it's
Game.
called The Awesome
The
Game.
Awesome Game. One man's incredible globe-crushing hockey odyssey, and it's out in a few days here. And I'm getting my media onslaught underway by appearing on your podcast, but also I'm here in Calgary at Calgary Word Fest, which is a really fun book festival that I've done before. And I love Calgary, and I'm here. I'm here for a few days, and then I go to Toronto for a few days, and it's really fun because I don't know why America, my homeland, hasn't accepted me on this level. Really, my popularity soars when I leave America. But like in Canada next week, I'll go on like their equivalent of like the Today Show, the Good Morning America. I'll go on all those TV shows. I'm the rest of the world welcomes me with open arms. It's been a bit of a slog in America for me, but yeah, I'm here in Canada the next week. And I'll do one show in Toronto, which will be fun. I'm gonna do a show. Do you know Nick Flanagan?
Yes.
The hilarious, handsome Nick Flanagan and I are going to do a show together in Toronto next week. So I'm psyched to be in Canada and just a little. I don't know if I should say this, but I didn't realize that I was getting paid uh, for this festival I'm at, and they gave me a little walking around money. And I'm really excited because it just feels like mad. It's like your dad slipping you a 20, you know? I'm like, oh my God. So I'm really psyched. As soon as we're done, I'm hitting the streets and I'm just going to blow this on poutine or something. I don't know.
What are you going to do? What would you eat if not poutine? And who needs the USA? This sounds glorious what you're describing to me, Dave. Your popularity also, I got to say, is always sky high here on this show. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. But yeah, it is nice to, I do live in New York and, but yeah, but everyone's leaving and I kind of want to leave New York, just because I want like a house. I want to live in a house, and I don't have millions of dollars that you need to have a house in New York. But that's a whole other show.
Yeah, I
But
mean, nor is it worth it. Like, I love talking about real estate, to be honest. And you'd need like $3 million to get a house in New York. And
30?
even then, it's like 2 bedrooms.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's nuts. Like uh I don't know. And but I don't know. This is
Yeah.
to even like looking the way don't get me started.
Yeah.
The
Yeah. Yeah.
prices on real estate. I mean, my girlfriend and I are, we do well, no complaints, but oh my gosh, those houses, they're expensive.
Yeah.
I'm
It's
really hoping
ridiculous, dude.
I'm kind of hoping my dad is like a secretly a billionaire or something. But I don't, or maybe he'll go out and get back to work. He's 91, and I'm, keep
How is he doing,
telling him.
Dave? You mentioned him in your special, Pride of Cleveland.
My dad, he's good. I mean, he's 91. If you talk to him on the phone, you would say that guy can't be a day. He sounds like a much younger man on the phone, but if you were to hang out with, if you saw him in person, you'd be like, he might be 91, or maybe in his 80s. I can't even believe he's 91 because I was like, wait a minute, he was just 83 the other day. This can't bode well for me either, I have to say, because I'm getting older.
Dude, how do you feel like the pandemic messed up time too? Because for me, I can't even gauge what reality is anymore.
Oh, me neither. I mean, just so, before we started, you were saying, well, I was saying like I haven't seen you in person, and there's so many people I haven't seen in person, and then like, yeah, just I don't know, like just even my life goals, are just like, I mean, I'm still doing fun stuff and stuff that I love doing, but I think I'm just sort of like, I don't care about I'm not looking. I just kind of want to hang out and eat a cheese plate with my dog. I don't really care about anything anymore.
What
Like
would, yeah, oh, I totally know.
I'm not looking to set a pitch meeting. I mean, I might, but I don't really care. I'm
Yeah,
just
like
like,
you'd
do
reply
I
to
have
the email, but you're not like chasing it down.
No, exactly,
Listen,
exactly.
you're an absolute legend at this point. What would be easier for you to quit? Would it be comedy or would it be music? Or, I mean, like at this point,
Mm,
those two sort of go hand in hand. It's all like performance and artistic
I,
output. Here's a better
yeah,
question. Maybe this is an easier question. When I think of like certified rock gods,
sure.
like of all time, that sort of get categorized as a comedic thing. I think of three people all time, Dave. It's you, Dave Hill.
Sure.
It's you.
Yeah.
And then I got to say, it's Kyle Gass and Jack Black, better known as
Oh,
Tenacious D.
oh, amazing.
Now,
I mean, those
I do want to
guys.
ask you about that too. Like you're on a book tour now, but the
Yeah.
three of you were on tour together, right? As a world tour or something. I mean, that's
Well, we did.
spectacular.
We did a bunch of shows in the South. We just finished a couple weeks ago. They've been doing legs of their spicy meatball tour, and those guys are amazing, and they have an amazing band. Um, Scott, John, and John, uh, amazing musicians, and I say this not kidding at all. I saw Metallica like 2 weeks before I started the Tenacious D tour, and Tenacious D kicks the shit out of Metallica. And I'm not joking even a little bit. It's a better show. It's like Metallica's great, don't get me wrong. They played in a stadium.
They listen to
you
this
know,
show.
they listen to this show and they're hearing me openly tell them to up their game. Because truly, like Tenacious D, I mean, first of all, Jack Kyle, the band, the crew, there's like 25 people in their, you know, their whole operation. They're all the nicest people. And the show is so fucking good. The music's great, the songs are great, singing great, playing is great. There's fire, there's a giant inflatable Satan. It's endless and it's amazing. It's they put on a better show. I watched it every night, and every night I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. Truly. It's truly, I mean, it's so fucking good. I mean, I've seen so many bands like recently, and they put on the best show. I've seen Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Metallica, Kiss, Pantera,
Shit.
um, you know, all bands you would expect an
You to
amazing
have
show
seen,
from,
yeah, of course.
and all great, all great. I mention all acts. I'm not mentioning any acts that don't have fire in the show. If you don't have fire in the show, why are we even talking about you? But groups that have, if you have fire, and all those groups have fire, but Tenacious D is, they're the best. It's truly the best show, and they have a giant Satan I mentioned, and the Satan does different stuff throughout the show, and they don't just have the zero. Here's Satan. Like Satan is, was sometimes just his eyes are glowing. It's the best show. It's fucking great. I just had so much fun on that tour, and I'm I'm excited for the future. One thing I'll tell you, as
Are you gonna hook up with them in the future?
yeah, I can't really talk about it, but I let's not even get into it. It's a secret.
Yo, people can't see you right now, but your face got super like STFU, Greg. Like, let's
I
move on.
crossed a line. Let's I
Yeah.
can't, you know, I hope so. That's all I can say.
Wait, so when you're on tour with
Cut
the
out
D,
that part where I said yes. Cut out that part. I might get in
you never
trouble.
even said yes.
Okay. Oh shit. Oh
Yeah,
my
you
god,
just-
I've just I'd be the
I'll cut it all
worst.
out.
I
No
would
one,
be the
I'm not
worst. Like
recording.
if I were ever arrested, I would be so easy to frame me. Frame me for oh man. But yeah,
What if I'm not even recording? I just like to connect with people.
I know you don't even have a podcast, and I would be happy because I love you, so I'd be like, oh, I just talked to Greg for an hour, so hey, I can't, great.
Wait, one more thing, and then I'll wrap up on the D. When you're on tour with them, you're really like watching every night, right? Because it's a remarkable concert, right?
It truly is, and it's great. I mean, I always, you know, I'm always wanting to check out. I would watch if I were on tour with um
Who are
Celine
some of your
Dion, which
favorite
I'm open to.
tours?
Pardon?
Who have been some of your favorite acts to tour with? I don't think you've toured with Celine yet, but
No, I
soon,
mean,
maybe soon.
I would. I mean, I've performed with a lot of comedians, of course, as well as you have. I mean, in terms of comedians, I've toured with Janine Garofalo a lot, and that's always
She's the
been
best.
so. I love her. I mean, she's one of my favorite comedians ever, and one of my favorite human beings ever. And she's also a comedian that I would watch every show because every show with her is different. It's not like she's not going out and doing this. Even if we do two shows in one night, some places you could watch both shows because they'll be totally different.
That's awesome,
She
and that's
might.
super rare. And
Oh,
she always
totally
makes me laugh when she does stand up, and she seems like what limited contact, a super kind and normal person. Did you meet
amazingly
her
kind.
in the Mo Pitkins world? in New York City?
I think I met her through we have the same manager, so I met her through that, I think.
Cool.
But I was terrified of her because she's like the cool senior in high school. She smokes, she's beautiful, She's she's the person to be terrified of in school. I say senior, like senior class. I'm not calling her old. I'm
No,
just
like high
saying the
school senior. Yeah.
cool upperclassmen. And so I
Like
was
in
really,
Dazed and Confused.
yeah, yeah. So I was very afraid of her. And then, we became friends. And she's, yeah, insanely kind. She's like has bought toys for my dog, multiple toys.
That's
Like
amazing.
I would come home and her boyfriend Pete's a friend of mine, and he'll help out with my sweet dog Lucy sometimes when I can't or I'm traveling, and I'll come home and there'll be like stuffed dinosaur that Janine brought over for Lucy, while I was away.
That's the
Janine's, I will
best.
say this, she's been to my apartment many times, but never when I was there. I've gotten reports that she was there. But anyway, so with comedy, I would say she comes to mind. Though I'm certainly there's other people, but with music, I love opening for bands, and it's such a my favorite thing is to open for like heavy bands because it's the biggest challenge. I think like I don't know if you know the band Down, but it's like a bunch of it's kind of a New Orleans supergroup, hard rock, metal, sort of, it's like
How
Pepper
dare
King
you?
from Croce
How dare you?
Conformity.
Of course
How
I know
dare?
them.
Oh,
Of
okay,
course
of
I know
course.
Down.
Okay. Well, some people might not, but it's, Phil Anselmo from Pantera, Jimmy Bauer from I Hate God, Kirk Winstein from Crowbar, Pat Bruders from Saint Fight, many bands, and I've opened for them a couple times, and I love it because they have a great sense of humor and they're great guys and great buddies of mine. But the crowd, I've opened for them twice, and they always have put me on direct support, which I demand. Let me be clear: if I'm going to open for a band, it has to be direct support, not going on at 7.
Wait,
And
that's
so
hysterical. Like, and those guys in Down, like, I don't know if I'd want to make any demands, but you're willing to stand up.
Well, no, I never had to ask them because they just did it automatically
I'm
because
sorry. Yeah.
they have a great sense of humor and they know that it's funny to put two metal bands on, then have the comedian and then go on, which is, I mean, they're geniuses in that way because like that is funnier than having me go on first. It's funnier to wait until the crowd is completely fired up and then be like, here's the comedian. And then about half the crowd is totally on board and then the other half is like, what the fuck is happening? And then that's my sweet spot. I mean, I think you've seen me. My sweet spot is half acceptance, half confusion. That's where I thrive. So I really like that. And then I'm wearing an Autopsy hoodie now. My friend Chris Reifert's band, he asked me to open for them at Reggie's in Chicago. And of course I was like, yeah. And then when I saw the listing for the show, they had me first and then like 3 death metal bands and then Autopsy. And I texted Chris, I was like, Chris, direct support or I'm not coming. And so he's like, of course, you're right. And so to go on at 11 o'clock at night after 3 or 4 death metal bands have already played and then go, here's the comedian. People really, it's jarring. It's jarring for people. And I opened for Snoop Dogg once and talk about the best/worst show of my life.
Oh my God. Where was that? How did that go down?
Oh, it went down about as well as you would think. It was at the Moody Theater, Austin, where they do Austin City ACL Live, Austin City Limits,
Nice.
and I had opened for Ryan Adams there. Like this is probably like 7, 8 years ago or something. His crowd was amazing. Uh, they were like I could take pauses like um I could take pauses like I was doing a comedy show. Like I didn't have to worry that drunken music fans were gonna just like fill the space and make it really hard for me. They were like, and then what happened? And and it was I ended up doing a couple more shows with him after that, and then so the my uh then my buddy Jack, who works at the Moody Theater, was like, "Hey, do you want to come back and open for Snoop Dogg?" And I was like, "Of course." And the next day, I was like, "Hey, are we still talking about this?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's happening." And I was like, "Does Snoop Dogg know it's happening?" And he's like, "He doesn't, but his people do." And so I was like, "Well, this is my one request. Can you make sure my name is mentioned in every form of advertising for this show? Because that is really I'm doing this for the story because the show could potentially be a disaster." And so he did. He honored my request,
Wow.
and Snoop Dogg, it was about 2,000 people. I would
Shit, man.
say I would say maybe 500 of them were totally on board with what I was putting out, and the other maybe the other 75% were kind of like, who is this guy testing the microphone for a really long time?
No, but
It
Dave,
was
500 is a lot.
no, that's the way, sometimes you got to convert them one heart at a time, so I think, when I thought about it, I was like, oh, you know, uh, this is cool. I'll
It's
take the
good math.
500. Yeah, I was like, all right, that's cool. That's cool. So it was fun. Had a good time.
Wait, and then when you hook up with a band like Down, I mean, there is no band like Down. It's a metal supergroup. Like, what
Yeah.
possesses them to be like, yeah, we'd love to have a stand-up open? I mean, it's obviously not a stand-up. It's like Dave Hill. Like, but I just think, like, isn't it fascinating the aesthetic of like a band that would ask for a comedian to open?
Well, they're really funny guys, and they're comedy fans, and I've been friends with them for a long time. I did a web series, Metal Grasshopper, with Phil Anselmo about 10 years ago. That's on YouTube if anyone wants to see it. And they were doing there it was like sort of post COVID, like homecoming show in New Orleans at the Fillmore. It was like 2,000 people, and I hadn't done anything really since the pandemic, and it was uh it was amazing. I was psyched but then like right leading up to the show is like right when Delta like
Oh.
showed up, and like it was kind of hairy, and I was like, "Oh no." and But it ended up being amazingly fun, and and I love New Orleans. A buddy of mine has a restaurant there, Le Crepe Nanu, which I can't recommend enough, French place.
Huge.
And I went there, and I was eating in this restaurant. I was by myself eating like mussels and drinking wine,
Amazing.
and I realized, I was like, "Oh my god, this is the first time I've been happy in like a year and a half." I was like, I'm experiencing feelings of well-being right now." And so yeah, I did that show, and then we did another one. I'm hoping that we do more.
It's so great connecting with you. I wonder what your experience was in pandemic, and also not doing stand up and music in pandemic. Was the plan always to return and then that offer was what set it in motion?
No, I mean, I don't know if you felt this way, but during the pandemic, I think I was losing my mind and I thought I'll never perform again and I may never see my friends again and I may just live in isolation the rest of my life. Um, you know, so I'm still like struggling um just the sort of thing of like doing show like my trying to get my brain it's been hard to like come up with new ideas cuz I think I kind of shut my brain off as a defense mechanism of like, oh, I'm not going to ever do this stuff again. So during the pandemic I started doing like a lot more visual art cuz I was like that's fun and uh and then I
Oh
just
my God, sick. I want to
started
see
playing the
that.
guitar. Yeah, I just started like painting stuff and I started a tiny clothing line with my friend. The clothes are regular size. No pun. I mean, that's not a pun. It's just
Wait,
a bad
what's the name
joke.
of the
But
clothing company and do you wear the clothes?
it's called Bunny. I do. We've done mostly women's clothes, but we've done 3 men's shirts. We're about to do a fourth, and I do wear them. I don't wear them as much as I probably should, but because it feels like wearing clothes with my own design on them. It's sort of like you make a lasagna and then you finish the lasagna, you're like, "Oh man, I'm just gonna have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich." I kind of feel that way about any like I can't wear like a lot of like t-shirts that I've designed and stuff because it doesn't kind of feels weird to me.
Is now an okay time to offer you one of my peanut butter and jelly sandwiches?
Oh my god, I would love it. I bet you make a
Dude,
mean peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
dude, I have so wait, going back to the pandemic thing, I can totally empathize, Dave, because I'm still underestimating the effects of the steep drop off of like the isolation of pandemic because suddenly, like you were saying, you're not like performing for people and it can feel almost maybe that much more lonely, right? I mean,
Yeah, and there, also as a Gemini, Greg. No, but I mean, part of me
me
is
too, Dave.
you're a Gemini also?
Yeah, I'm a Gemini too.
Oh, so this is probably the same. Like I'm partially like I like being on stage like when it's happening, but I'm also like super introvert. Um I don't mind being alone for days at a time.
Dave, me too. That
Um
part of the pandemic was easy for me. And
yeah,
I have dread before going on stage. That's one of the things in my post pandemic performance. I'm trying not to have dread about going on stage before it. Would you say you feel some dread?
I I do well I've always since especially not with music but with comedy ever since I've started comedy I've dreaded every single one of them. I
Even Snoop Dogg?
yeah, I mean doubly cuz I I'm always like, "Oh, I hope like a water main breaks and I don't have to go out there." But once I'm out there, I feel good and that's just I just have to remind myself like, well, it'll be fine once it's happening. Um But I think the more I incorporate music into the show, um, like I did the last 2 weeks of the Fringe Festival in Edinburgh,
How
and I
was
wrote
Scotland? How was that?
I fucking love it. I love Scotland, and I'd done the festival before, but not in a long time, and I just did the last 2 weeks because a month is fucking long time. And I wrote a song to open the show because I just wanted to like kind of have a ridiculous like opening number for the show, rather than just walk out and start talking. And then so I did that on the Tenacious D tour also, and it sort of makes it way more. It makes it like I don't dread it as much because I know I'm just gonna go out there and dance around and sing and be an idiot for the
Well, you're
first.
also like a guitar virtuoso. I mean,
Oh, thank you. I don't know about virtual.
I kind of think you are, but I have a average opinion. what does my opinion matter? But
I'll
anyway,
take it.
it must make it 100 times. Do you feel 100 times better when you know you can go out, shred, and then start speaking?
It's a fun thing. Well, it's weird. Like with comedy, for a long time, I didn't know how to introduce the guitar into the comedy. I kind of kept it separate, just out of my reverence for rock. Yeah, because I didn't. I know, and I still have my band Valley Lodge now. Our songs, the themes to show to the John Oliver show, not to brag, but
Yeah, you wrote the theme for the John Oliver show, and it's just one of many rockin' tracks and phenomenal music you've put
rocket track.
out.
Yeah, it's one of our songs, and they were kind enough to want to use it for the show, so that's cool. I'm so honored and psyched. And
Isn't John Oliver the coolest dude? I love that guy.
he's such a nice guy and such an amazingly talented, hilarious guy too. Like it's cool. Like I'd be thrilled to have my song be the theme to any show. Not any show. I mean, I wouldn't want it to be the theme to, Tucker Carlson or something. But to have it be like the theme song to a show that I also love is really cool. Like, my girlfriend will DVR it or whatever you call it when you save a show.
Yeah.
And she'll turn it on. I'll hear my riff coming on from the other room, and I'll walk in and I'll be like, "Oh, cool, watching this excellent program."
So sick.
But anyway, going back to the thing with the guitar, like it took me a while because I was like, "Oh, it's not funny to be good at the guitar," but then and then I realized like it's funny to be really good though. Like it gets funny again. So like once I realized like all the tapping and just the fast stuff was funny, then that was fun to and it's also kind of like a comfort blanket to go out there and be able to talk, and then you just go rip a solo. And also you only have to talk half as much. If you're ripping solos, a 10-minute set is instantly a 20-minute set,
Yeah, you could
So
have like 5 jokes, right?
yeah, I literally can do a full set with telling 5 jokes, maybe. And then the rest of the time you're just playing solos. So,
When you
um,
started and didn't want to incorporate guitar, were there comics you saw using guitar and you were like, that ain't it?
yeah, I mean, stuff, it was just people doing stuff that maybe I thought was really good and cool, but like just not what I wanted to do. I mean, uh, but then there's people like Tenacious D and Flight of the Conchords who I think like nail it, kick ass at both at the same. I think those are two examples of amazing like musical comedy. I mean,
Right. And I
especially
totally
like
agree with you that like it's funny again because you're so sick at guitar. Like that's what makes it funny. It like comes back around to like how sick nasty like Tenacious D or Dave Hill
yeah, I
is
mean,
at guitar.
thanks.
Like that benefits it so much because it's hysterical to see a guy walk out on stage and then suddenly he's fucking shredding.
Yeah, it's fun. And then plus like the fact that I think people assume when they see me with the guitar, they assume it's going to be really bad if they don't know. And then but like actually coming from Janine, like because I was opening with it was actually um we were at the Wilbur in Boston to
Oh
bring
yeah.
Boston back into it. And
Sick. Good
I was
theater.
doing I was doing stuff with a looping pedal, and I still use a looping pedal sometimes, but like I was doing stuff with the looping pedal, you layer the tracks but then the tracks keep playing. So at a big venue like that, I was doing it, and then I would take my hands off the guitar and people would laugh, and I realized they were laughing because they thought it was fake, like I wasn't really doing it. And then um the next night or something
So
we
wait, in the
were
middle of that set, you basically get like your mind blown. You're like, wait, what's happening? What are they laughing at?
yeah, I was really but then I did a show, and my friend Jay was at a show at like in Virginia at like Alamo Draft House or something, and then he was like, "Oh, you should just take requests at the beginning of the show, and that way people will know you're really doing it because you're playing the song that they asked for. So it was such an easy, but like thing that I was like, oh yeah, and it totally worked. So now I just do that, and it establishes that like, oh yeah, this is real. It's not on tape. So that was sort of the thing. Because it was like I did that. My friend Walter Schreifels, who from the band Quicksand. Oh, well, I've also opened for Quicksand, which was a great
That's
experience.
amazing.
But you know, he's Quicksand, Gorilla Biscuits, Rival Schools, and then so he's a buddy of mine, and he saw me at Comics years ago, Comics with an X, as you recall.
Yeah, Dave. You and I owned that place.
Yeah, and I was playing the guitar, and then after the show, he was like, "I was watching you, and I thought it was fake, but then I was watching your hands, and I was like, oh, he's playing where that's where your hands would go if you were really gonna play it." And then he finally was like, "Oh, he's really doing this." And then he was like, "Hey, do you want to be in my band?" So that's how I ended up in his solo band. We toured Europe a few times. I ended up in a solo band because he saw my comedy show.
Dave, that's the most amazing story of all time. You went and did stand up, and that's how you got a gig touring Europe with a metal god.
Yeah, yeah. Who was, and he's one of my favorite, best buddies and favorite musicians. So
Well,
yeah.
yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to classify him I'm sorry, but I think that's such an
No,
amazing
there's
story.
nothing to apologize. There's nothing to apologize. No, because
You got recruited by one of your favorite musicians at
yeah, he is a
Comics with an
god.
X.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the twists and turns of life.
Who would you put among the greatest rock idols you've met? Like, does anyone stick out?
I've met a lot.
Dio?
I've met Dio. Do you knew I met Dio? That's why you asked, right?
Yeah, but what was the story behind that?
I met him the first time I did his show in LA. This would have been like 2006. I was like, I'd been doing stuff at UCB in New York, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go to LA and do a show. So I was doing this show, the Dave Hill Explosion, which was kind of like a goofy talk show. And I
Yes,
would always,
legendary. And at that point of that trip, like, were you loving doing comedy versus music, or were you just feeling like you were doing the perfect, like, kind of blend of them both? Just
I think
curious.
I mean, I'd only been doing comedy for like a year at that point. So
Interesting.
I was
Cool.
kind of, I never intended to go into comedy. So I think what I like and miss about my early years, and I think I've been trying to get back to this mindset ever since, is because I mean, I kind of like, I had like a lot of cool things happen early on, and I feel like I've been just trying to get it back ever since. But I'm like, like I think because in the beginning I didn't care, I had no aspirations, I had no idea what was going on. So I was just like, I don't know, I'll just go do this thing. So people seem to want me to just do it, so I'll go do it. And then I also had the blind confidence, or like now I wouldn't just be like, I'm gonna call up Ronnie James Dio. I mean, he's dead now, but I mean, I don't. I'm a little more shy than I was then. Like I would, but
Don't
then
call him.
I would be like, oh, I'm in LA. Who's in LA? Ronnie James Dio's in LA. Why don't I see if he'll come to UCB? So I just kind of asked around. I knew like my friend Adrian Perry, who's Joe Perry from Aerosmith's son. He would tell me
Sick.
stories. He would
Is he
tell
from
me stories.
Massachusetts?
Yes, from I think Duxbury, right?
Sick. Yeah,
Is
that's
that it?
probably where Joe Perry's from. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if I'm getting that right. And
The story, I've heard that story so many times that like Steve Tyler and Joe Perry met at like a French fry stand on the Cape or something insane.
yeah, they're Boston dudes. So like he would tell me stories about like as a kid growing up, because his parents were he grew up. They were, separated or wherever, and he grew up primarily in LA, I think. And he's like, yeah, Dio would come over and play chess with me when I or back whatever when he was a little kid. And I was just like, that's the fucking greatest childhood I've ever heard of. And anyway, so I knew him. And I had another friend that worked in metal, and I was kind of like asking around, and I got Wendy Dio's email address, Mrs. Dio, and I emailed her. And then one day my phone rings, and she's like, "Yeah, Ronnie wants to do it." So I was, yeah, Dio. I mean, I don't know. He would be. What was your question? Who is the most amazing? I mean,
Yeah, are
Dio.
there others that come to mind?
Dio was he was so nice, and I
Yeah.
was freaking out because you think like Ronnie James Dio like lives in a castle and has just swords around and stuff, and so you don't think that he's gonna walk into UCB on Franklin in LA, and he walks in and
Yeah.
he looks, he's dressed all he looks like Dio. He looks amazing, and I think he could tell I was losing my mind, and he kind of calmed me down. He's like, everything's gonna be okay. And then afterwards, this was before he had gotten back with, his lineup of Black Sabbath, you know, and they were getting together to issue like there was like the Dio years Black Sabbath compilation, and so we're backstage at UCB in the little green room, and he told me this, and I'm sure many people knew this, but he was telling me this as if like only he and Tony Iommi knew at this point. He's like, "Hey, don't tell anyone, but in a few days I'm flying over to Tony's house in England, and we're gonna write some new songs." And he was so sweet. He told it to me like as if like I'm the third person that knows. And which I was like, this guy's fucking amazing. And then he, he goes, he's like, "Hey, do you like Indian food?" I'm like, "Yeah, I love Indian food." And he's like, "Well, when you come back to LA, let's go out, let's get Indian food." And I was like, "You fucking kidding me?" So then by the next time I was in LA, like he was back with Black Sabbath, and but then they had to call it Heaven and Hell, uh, for whatever, for whatever reasons. And they were out touring, and so I tried to get Indian food with Dio a few times, but he was never around. And then, sadly, he died not long after that. So, but yeah, I got to put Dio up there. I mean, I've been lucky enough I've met so many mu- musicians that I've admired. I mean, I've never met Paul Westerberg from the Replacements,
Ooh,
and
let's
but
manifest it.
I've met Tommy Stinson. Do you want to hear my Tommy Stinson story?
Please.
Um, so my buddy Rhett Miller from Old 97s, he was playing at City Winery, and he's been kind enough to have me perform with him a bunch over the years. And so we were doing a show. Before the show, he's like, "Hey, do you know Tommy Stinson?" And I'm like, "Well, I've never met him, but I love Replacements, are one of my favorite bands ever." And he's like, "Oh, well, he's a buddy of mine. He's coming tonight." So I was like, "Oh, it's amazing." So I had this jacket on, this
Does that
plaid
get you
jacket.
pumped, or like does that make you more nervous? Probably pumped.
No, I was psyched. Well, this is sort of the thing. Like, I never really think of who's in the audience. I'm like, fortunately, it just doesn't come to mind like who's in the audience unless I can see them right in front of me. But so, like, I never think of that. But I was wearing this plaid jacket, and then Rhett had me out, like, kind of for the end of his set, to play guitar with him. And so as I was playing, I was like, "Oh fuck, Tommy Stinson is here." And my mind started to wander. I was like, "Oh man, he is in one of my favorite bands." And like, Bob Stinson, Slim Dunlap, Paul Westerberg playing guitar and that, and the Replacements. And then I was like, he's in fucking Guns N' Roses with like Buckethead and Robin Fink and like these amazing like fucking beast guitar players.
Shout out to Buckethead. He listens.
Oh yeah, I love Buckethead. And so I was like, I hope he thinks that I'm decent at guitar. And so after the show, we're down in the dressing room at City Winery, and Tommy Stinson walks in, and Rhett's like, "Hey Tommy, did you meet Dave?" Like, and he's like, "Isn't he a great guitar player?" And he turns to me and he just goes, "I really like his jacket." and I was like, "Oh man!" I know he didn't mean that as a like, but I was like, "Oh!" Like I was psyched he liked my jacket, but I was like, the fact that he didn't answer the guitar question, I was like, "Oh man, oh man!" It broke my heart. It's okay. I still worship him and the Replacements. So.
He's like, I didn't mean to break your heart, but never meet your heroes.
No, he was super nice. I guess I just wanted him to be like, "Oh my God, you're better than Buckethead," which I'm not, to be clear, not even close.
Did you ever talk with Snoop Dogg? Did you get any feedback from him on your comedy set?
He didn't see my set, I don't think, but I had the biggest. So I was waiting around, and like, first of all, like when I was about to go on stage, like one of his security guards, like, who are you and what are you doing? Like they just had not been told. And so he like went and talked to the guy. He's like, "Okay, go ahead." And so then I waited around to meet Snoop Dogg, and like he's finally coming out, and like I wanted to go say it, and he has this like phalanx of security guys around him. And I go up to the same guy who asked me who I was, and I was like, "Can I just meet him, get a picture?" And he's like, "No, we gotta go." And I was like, "Come on, man, I just opened for him, like come on, you gotta let me." And he's like, okay. And so see all these massive dudes kind of part, and Snoop Dogg is so nice, and like we get a picture. I'll send you the picture. I have a booger. Snoop Dogg looks amazing. I have a big booger in my nose. And then I'm walking away.
Thank you for the warning.
I'm walking away. It was like that. I don't know if you know that Mean Joe Green Coke commercial from like the 70s or 80s or whatever. And I'm walking away. I get like 10 paces away, and Snoop goes like, "Hey, excuse me," like, and I turn around and I'm like, "Yes, Snoop Dogg?" He's like, "What's your name?" And I'm like, "Dave Hill." And he's like, "Dave Hill, I'm gonna look out for you." And I was like, "Oh man," my heart just melted. It was like such an amazing moment.
That's sick.
I just loved it. It was so sweet.
So you got to get out of here, but
yeah, I apologize. I should have wore.
Oh, bro, not at all. Will you
Let's do
come back for like a Christmas show?
Yeah, I would love it.
Listen, is there any last things you want to say about The Awesome Game? We didn't even get to touch on that. I wanted to ask you what writing that book was like. I want to ask you.
Well, I'll come back, but I'll tell you, it's a book primarily about hockey, but I've written it for hockey fans and people that don't like sports at all. So it has something for everybody. Can't lose. Can't lose.
There he goes. Wow. Big thanks. That was Dave Hill. Check out his book, The Awesome Game. DaveHillOnline.com. Thank you for checking out all our episodes at liveon95.com. My name is Greg Johnson. We'll see you next time. Careful driving out of here. Okay? Thank you.